Welcome to another episode of Artistry, where art meets industry. We are your hosts, Rachelle Etienne-Robinson and Stan Substantial Robinson. Welcome back. Today, our guest is none other than Kokayi.
Peace, peace, peace.
Yes, Kokayi, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Let me introduce this gentleman. So this is who we're speaking to today is Grammy-nominated artist, producer, educator, and CEO/creative director of Let's Talk More Walk. Mm-hmm. He is a DC native, born and bred. Speaking of DC, so what part of DC are we talking about? We talking about Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, Northwest?
I love to call it Southwest on the Southeast side. So if you look at the map, there's a little sliver of Southwest across the river. So east of the river, there's, it's Northeast and Southeast, but on top or right across by Bolin Air Force Base. And if you're on that side of the highway, one side of MLK is Southwest. And then the other side of it becomes South Capitol Street is Southeast. Mm-hmm. So I lived on the Southwest side, right off of South Capitol Street on a little street called Elmira, at the top of the hill between MLK and South Cap. And that whole area was Southwest. But, on the Southeast side.
Right. Now, you being from DC, you've seen firsthand the effects of gentrification. So tell us, walk us through what DC was like, being a child of the 70s and 80s. What was it like living in DC?
Other than White Mikey, and that was his real nickname, White Mikey. Other than White Mikey, right. I could go months at a time without seeing any white people, right? You might see some people of Asian descent, whether Korean or Chinese or rarely Japanese, just Korean or Chinese.
Yeah.
I had to carry out of the corner store, right? Mm-hmm. I used to pick up cools at the corner store for my father back in the day when they didn't ask you for no ID. They just be like, go down the street, give me some cools, come back home. And, cools and some cooking oil. Yeah. Cools and some Crisco, like come back up the hill.
Right.
So, yeah, it was, Chocolate City. Chocolate City. Mm-hmm. Marbury, Marbar. And award 8 aficionado is what I call myself. And that was that. It was very, I tell people to this day, that people in Washington, D.C., and I will just say the surrounding areas. I would definitely say people in D.C. and those, PG, some parts of MoCo, but definitely PG. People know about politics. Mm. And you could take it from street level hustler to White House, intern. Right. Everybody know about politics. Like I knew about senators creeping around with pages early on because my people would be like, oh yeah, I seen youngin slipping over there. Right. That's how they will roll. So we knew about politics from council seats to ANCs to mayoral politics to senators and, things of that nature, congressmen. And the little things that went on in DC metropolitan area, you always knew as somebody from Washington D.C. don't get arrested in the Commonwealth. Mm. Like that was a move. Like, oh, you going to VA? Don't be stupid in VA and don't get locked up in the Commonwealth. It's the Commonwealth, and we kind of knew what a Commonwealth meant. Right. You knew what them laws meant. You knew that's a tobacco state. That's a Confederate jump. That's get locked up forever. Like, you don't want the feds to hit you out there. Don't get caught up in Maryland. PG cops will beat you up. Like, it was all kinds of things that you already knew. And so there was an awareness. I think there still is to some extent, an awareness of these different realities of what it is growing up in Washington, D.C. There's several paradigms that exist here to be such a small city with a multitude of police forces. Also, if you think about it, you got regular MPD, you got Capitol Hill Police, you got Secret Service, you got Housing Authority Police, you got Park Police. I mean, I'm named 6 police departments in one small city, 40 square miles.
Right.
You know what I mean? From the tip of Northeast to the tip of Southeast, you're talking about police everywhere. A police literally within this small space, you have these different sorts of governmental entities that create some sort of Venn diagram of a police state within this small space. And then being able to navigate through that during one of the roughest times in DC when we were the murder cap in the crack area, you know.
Absolutely.
The drug capital, you know, we had kingpins and queen pins and all kinds of pins out here. And, you know, and you start looking at that. And when you look at that time and see the city, how the city has changed, you know, 14th Street was never a problem for me. I'm scared of 14th Street now, like shook. Because, you know, because quite frankly, white women are dangerous. Like, I'm just telling you straight up, and I don't mean that as a joke. I'm telling you straight. Like, it's times when people forget, like, this is Chocolate City. I don't forget.
Right.
You know, but, you know, I never feared walking around the city. I made a choice to raise my kids in the city for the very same reason. I didn't want them, A, to be scared of their own people, and B, be scared of anybody else.
Right.
Right.
You know, and coming from a person, and you know, you've traveled enough to know that when you visit different states and you interact with different people, their understanding of relationships between Black folks and white folks is very different. Because they don't feel like they're not the majority. Right. Whereas in this space, in this area, if you anywhere from this area with a you, if you're from the area, you understand that there's more of us than it is more of them. So you grow up with a different mindset. You grow up with a mindset like, oh, nah, I ain't scared of y'all. Like, I ain't scared of the feds. I ain't scared of white people. Like, what I'm supposed to look down because you walking down the street? That's different from somebody growing up in Denver.
Right.
You know, where in the population, they don't, you know, somebody growing up in Oklahoma, somebody growing up in, you know, in a small rural space, or even in a city where the majority of the city is don't look like you.
Right.
So when you grow up that way, I got a whole different, it ain't even a chip on my shoulder. It's a whole different foundation.
Sure. I think for some people who maybe aren't familiar with the DC music scene, right, they may not be aware of those dynamics. So I'm curious to know how this scene has kind of informed like you as an artist, right? Like how has it influenced your process? I mean, DC, for a lot of folks who are listening who don't know, is known as a live music city. The way like New Orleans has their live music, DC has that same reputation of being a live music city. So how has that informed you as a musician, both the politics, the struggles, and all of these things? How do you encompass that?
Well, DC has a deep historical cultural identity. That's, you know, like you said, you mentioned it. Similar to Second Line and Zydeco, you don't have many places that have their own indigenous music. DC has its own indigenous music form, go-go music, which is a live music situation. It presents live, similar to jazz, similar to rock, similar to a lot of different music forms outside of electronic music. So if we just take away all the electronic music that was founded and worked on in DC and just stuck with live bands, you talking about R&B, jazz, rock, punk in particular, and go-go. These things all, you know, come out of band culture. So we have band culture from the days of Duke Ellington, Marvin Gaye, and so forth. You know, even, you know, Wes Felton's dad, you know, the deep legacy, Roberta Flack, Donny Hathaway. I mean, we could just talk about the deep historical individuals within our community that started out as music creators, live music makers, right? And with the foundation and establishment of go-go music, then you just create a whole legacy of live music presentations. So bands to me were not foreign. Playing an instrument was not a foreign thing. Being in a situation in which you interacted with bands was not a foreign thing. And I think that kind of gives you a leg up when you move into different spaces that you understand how to interact with a band. You going in front of a band and rocking is way different from somebody who never dealt with a band before and doesn't understand that energy. I mean, it even affects your performance. Mm-hmm. So we come from, you know, hip hop culture, gospel culture, African culture, period, when we talk about call and response patterns. And when we get into the etymology, you know, of music and the history of how music creation happens, when you talk about jazz, when you talk about any of these things that require innovation, improvisation, and call and response, right? Mm. Those things exist firmly within our culture, our musical landscape as residents of this area. Because you used to go-go music, you used to syncopation, right? Mm-hmm. You used to call and response. Where you from? Southeast, Northeast, Maryland, where you at? Right here. You know, pick any of those old go-go songs. They telling you to say something back to them. So you get the call and response, the shouts and hollers that you used to get back when we were not able to govern ourselves and were owned by other people. We had those cadences and things that would get us through the workday. And so that trickles down throughout that whole line into go-go music. And so you have that call and response. You have syncopated African rhythms and you have African instruments. So you have congos, you have timbales, you have a heavy reliance on the drum to relate the information, similar to African music, you know, the African diaspora. The drum is key. And you have that syncopation within that, along with the call and response. And then you have the innovation where we take something out of nothing. So you get bands like Junkyard Band that actually literally had junk to start playing on, right? So it's purely African in the way that it's established and moved on. And so that has informed me, especially when you talk about innovation, you talk about punk rock, which, you know, is normally attributed to other places. You know, I mean, Los Angeles definitely had a heavy punk scene, but DC did too. And one of the most revered bands out of DC, Bad Brains, influenced so many punk rock bands. You know, they even talk about it in the Beastie Boys documentary. You know, Foo Fighters talks about it. You know, Dave Grohl being from this area, Dave Grohl talks about go-go and punk. From DC, Dave Grohl throws Big Tony a party every year to celebrate his birthday, because he understands that the formation of punk rock was largely fueled and helped by go-go music, because they would only let those two play in the same space. So go-go bands were already playing, and they wouldn't let the punk kids play nowhere else except with a go-go band. Wow. Same thing happened with hip hop. So it's you have this intertwining of all these things. And so, growing up here, you already understand this kind of culture. And then the other piece is, we a small city with a big attitude. We a small area with a big attitude, real talk. Right. Like you talk about Maryland, people talk about Maryland. I think this is the differentiation between Baltimore and PG and Baltimore and Moco. It's still Maryland, but because you feel so close to the city and involved in this small city, but we got them hands though. Like I think that's really the DC perspective, the DC, Maryland, Virginia perspective, you know, is we might be small, young, but come get these hands. You can get them. Right. You know, we don't care. We don't care who you are. We not going to clap. We not going to be your friend. We boo you to your face. You know, I don't care who you are. I don't care how many millions of records you sold. Entertainment, right?
And I mean, and you know, and for those who don't know, also, like, historically, this area has been extremely influential in urban music in particular, in terms of being able to kind of predict the next big wave, right? Like, certain music would come out and labels would know, like, all right, if it's performing well in DC, it's probably going to do well in this market nationally, right? Like, it's going to do well in the national market. So, and that's something I learned early on in the record industry that I didn't know. Like, I just really didn't know how influential we were. You know?
Nah, we're one of the top 10 buyers markets, right? That's a good thing and a bad thing for DC, is that it's just like any other. So you take it. I look at DC like I look at other countries. You know, you got a gross national product and you got a gross national debt when you talk about countries. So if you create a whole bunch of stuff, you got product that you sell to other people, and that influences your economy, right? And that influences your standing as a country globally.
Right.
If you buy a lot of stuff, but you're not creating a lot of stuff, that means you have more money going out than you actually have coming into your country. And so it puts you lower on the tiers of countries because your gross national product ratio to your gross national debt is off kilter. And so DC, though we are number one buyer's market, we ain't producing as much outside and don't have the infrastructure of industry as far as music is concerned to cause that same industry to come here and make an established space, like put record labels on 15th or on K Street, so that you can have this burgeoning music economy. We buy a lot of music, but our exported music ends up somewhere else, LA, Atlanta, New York, etc.
Sure.
A couple of years ago, you had presented a TEDx Washington, D.C. talk where you discussed collaboration and the creative economy. How important would you say, is the business side of the performing arts?
I think my perspective has always been this: if you learn the music business, you'll stay in love with music. And I think that crosses any creative thing, right? If you love film, if you understand the business of film, but you love making movies, right? You'll continue to make movies once you understand the business, because the business of it, it's like having a dream and then having that dream become reality, right? A lot of people that I know, and probably you know, have quit doing music because the business wore them down.
Absolutely.
They put 100% of their faith and love and hope in the fact that this music was going to feed them and feed their kids and pay for their illustrious lifestyles and make sure that they was doing all this great stuff, that they would never have any worries. And when the money didn't come in, then they not only hated the business, they hated the music that they was doing because they felt like they was wasting their time. But I feel like I love music. I've loved music since I was a kid and sitting at my daddy's feet listening to records, watching my sisters hum songs in the hallway. I'm always going to love music. I may not always like the music business, but because I understand it, it gives me a different perspective. It's not personal for me, like a lot of times. I mean, it ain't personal until you say, Coke, I hate you. Like that's, that's when it's personal.
Right.
But it's not personal if you say, I don't like your music.
Right.
It's not personal if you say, hey, that's not my wave. It's not personal. When people do cruddy stuff to try to block you from something, but if you about your business, they can't really block you. Not really.
Right.
So that's how I look at it. I think once you understand the business of music, and the intricacies of each. So like your specialty, when I talk to you, Stan, your specialty is understanding your market, understanding how to promote to your market, understanding how to utilize social networks and social interactions and touch points and action items to move your audience to do exactly what they're supposed to do. That's when I look at you, I know somebody who has understood the business. When I look at you both, y'all understand the business to a space where you can say, okay, here's my audience and I need to move my audience to go do X, and you get your audience to go do X, right? You understand that part about the business, so you're not confused if somebody buys, 15 things over here and then doesn't invest over here, because you've already taken time to look at the data to figure out, what your audience is, to understand the scope of the business. So when you make your records, you're not tripping. Right. You're like, I'm going to promote and give people an action item to go do this. If they don't go do this, that must not resonate with them. But it'll resonate with these people over here because I have the quantifiable data that shows me that this type of record is going to move these people. This type of record is going to move these people. Now, you're not doing things to be calculated, but you calculate that in the way that you promote the music.
Right.
You're not creating for the fans, you're creating for yourself, but you understand the data behind how your fans operate, and you understand the mindset of your fan, and you understand the mindset of the business, so much so that you're able to effectively incorporate your music into that structure.
Right. And you're creating like realistic expectations based off of, what your experiences have been, right? And being able to measure actual growth or the opposite. And so, so you're not going in completely blind, which creates a lot of the, like a lot of these jaded, some of our peers, right? And some other folks in the industry who are very jaded because oftentimes they have a unrealistic expectation of how their stuff is going to perform based on either their investment, the lack thereof, or like their own ego. There's a lot of different things that kind of factor into it. And so, yeah, I feel you.
You got to know exactly who you are. You got to know exactly. I'm not going to lie to myself. You know what I mean? And I think that's super key in understanding this music business is you got to stop. Don't lie to your man. You better quit. Right. if you want to be about this life and you want to be about making this music, you better quit lying to you.
Sure.
You know, I definitely think I'm dope. Do I know that I'm dope? Absolutely. Do I know I can write a great song? Absolutely. Am I YBN Corday? Nope.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm not. I'm just not. I'm not 6ix9ine. I'm not, I'm not none of these youngins out here. I'm not Doja Cat. I'm not Rico Nasty. I'm not them. And I'm not envious.
Right.
I'm not mad. And I'm not sitting back listening to their song going, I could have did that better. It's like, what about and they did them. Mm-hmm. They did them. I do me. Our audiences may or may not be the same. Am I willing or do I want to be in that lane? If that's the lane that I want to be in, then I need to change up my whole steez. So all this lyrical miracle that you're doing, you might want to pull that back and go get a little simple.
Right.
If you're not willing to, and I think that goes along with understanding the business. Once you understand the business, if you are willing, that's the thing that the business makes you do. That's when you get out of the love affair of just loving music, right? Because I love music. And then you get into the love affair of loving business. It's because the business is going to say, okay, they making $6.9 million. They getting 450 billion streams, but they talking about this. You going to talk about that?
Right.
Now, if you ain't going to talk about it, stop complaining about their streams and stop complaining about their money because you don't want to do that. You don't want to get butt naked on the track. You know what I mean? You ain't cussing people out. You ain't shooting people in your music. You ain't talking about all the ignorant shit that they talking about. Like, if you're not willing to do that, shutty uppy.
Right. Yeah.
And, for those who have not seen you, I mean, definitely look him up. I mean, Kokayi is definitely one to watch, one to see and see again and again and again. Because I think because of your range, I mean, you go from hip hop to jazz to funk to punk to rock to soul, R&B, you name it. You all under one roof, all under one skull cap.
Right. And sometimes to my detriment. I mean, and I keep that a buck too,
And I was going to say, it what's awesome about watching you do that too is it never feels like a reach, right? Like it feels effortless. Right. And I think, I mean, we find artists that kind of experiment with different genres, making genre bending music, so to speak. And I mean, and a lot of times, there are a few folks out here who do a great job of doing it. And while a lot of times it comes across as forced, but when I listen to you, like that is never, it's effortless. It never feels like a forced thing. And I know that's not something that happened overnight. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's important maybe to kind of talk about that a bit, right? Like the whole, your 10,000 hour journey, so to speak, like, like what gave you the freedom, right? And what made you feel free enough to experiment with all these things, especially being someone who's from the area, but even though we're from the area and we know the history of this area in the industry, we know that like a good amount, there's a lot of pockets of friends in area, like different parts of the area where you can't go in there doing this type of thing and get accepted. So yeah, if you could talk about that a little bit, just like what that process was like for you to get to that point.
For sure. It's I think the beginning of the process started with accepting who I am as me. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's key to understanding who you are as an artist. Once you understand who you are as an artist, like I had a good mentor, Steve Coleman, right? And Steve would say, you got to understand when to say no. Once you understand what you're not going to do, it makes it really easy to answer all the questions. Right. If somebody telling you go over here and get naked, no. Somebody tell you go over here and do this, no. Like, because you know who you are, it starts with, making that time. So the beginning of the journey, the beginning of the 10,000 hours, the first hours are really defining who you are as an artist. Like, who am I? What am I willing to do? What am I not going to do? You know, what roads am I going down? And do I care about what people think? Right. And I think some artists get caught up on that part. They have established themselves as this type of artist for so many years. And so they're afraid that once they segue away from that, they just going to leave their fans. And man, your fans, if you've been honest with your folks, your folks are going to understand that this is part of the journey. Right. They're not going to be confused because they've been with you since day one. And when they seen a little peek of it, they was like, hold up. You know, what's that? And you like, well, I do this too. And they like, oh, well, show me some more. And you like, okay, here you go. Right. You know, and even, you know, the people that's going to rock with you for life, or they just going to leave. And you can't be afraid of that. And I think that's when you first start talking about the first 1,000 hours, that first 1,000 hours is spent on establishing, you know, the rapport between, it's just like dating. As you know, that first 1,000 hours, you gotta be like, hey, what's good? You know, you want to go to the movies, you know, you polite and you talk to people in a way that's different, you know, and you trying to make sure that they understand who you are. And you have deep conversations about, you know, how you gonna do this and how you raise folks and, you know, what would our life look like? Like you get into those things that, you know, what was your life like before you met me? So they understand the history. You know, you put up you start understanding one another in that aspect. And then as you grow in your relationship, you reveal more and more to that person. And you also understand with that person, they're willing to go challenge themselves just like you challenged them. You know what I mean? You start to challenge, you know, as long as y'all been married, when y'all first started dating, it don't look like it look now. Right. And when you got to a certain point in your relationship, you knew you could see in the other person where you know they want to go, but sometimes they don't have the courage to go. And so what you start doing with them is you start not only for yourself, you start getting better, you up your level, but you look at them and be like, yo, come on, I know you can go do this. You want to do this? Because the secrets start coming out. The secrets of, I don't want to go to work every day and work for somebody else. If I could earn this much money and I could do this, this, and this, I don't want to go work for them. And that other person is either going to be like, go to work, or they're going to be like, all right, let's get this dream in. But now you know, if you want to get this dream in, you can't be loafing. Right. You're not gonna loaf here, and here. Like, you need to tighten up this, you need to tighten up that. And if they have a journey, and all you do is you work together to push one another to become greater, to be your best selves. Right. And the longer you in a relationship with somebody, in love with somebody, you want to make sure that they're happy. Right? Even if that's with you or without you, honestly. You know, their happiness is more than just being with you. Their happiness is being okay with them. Absolutely. You know, and so I think as you grow as an artist, that's the other piece. It's like that happiness ain't just with me. You know, I want you to be happy with me, but I got to be happy with me. You know, I got to go out here and create and being realistic. Like you said, once again, comes back to that realistic thing. So after these 10,000 hours, I'm like, okay, I love making hip hop music, but I might go ahead and make this punk record. And I might go ahead and make these instrumentals. And I might go over here and play with my nose. I don't know. You know what I mean? But I'm going over there. I don't care. Like, I don't. So, you know, if you want to roll with me, roll with me. And if you don't, I can't. I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to be mad that you left. Right. I'm just going to go express myself. And those who love me will come with me.
You know, speaking of the early days in your career, you have performed in over 42 countries. Do you remember your first time, and what was the first place you traveled to outside of the U.S.?
Saint-Ouen, France.
And what was your experience like?
Like, I know that joke from the back. Listen, man. So I grew up, I was born at Cape Fritz Hospital, which is Greater Southeast. And then when I was 5, my dad worked for the Army. So it was, you know, it's 5 of us as far as my siblings, and 7 people in total, right? 5 kids, 2 parents, you know, parent. We all went to Germany when I was 5. My little sister was 2. We went to Germany and I lived in Mannheim for 5 years till I was 10. And then we came back to DC. And so I knew about other countries. I knew other cultures, but I wasn't, 5 to 10, you ain't getting the whole picture.
Right.
So I knew that I felt different when I came back. I didn't even know how to navigate when I came back. I was like, what is this aggression that these blacks have? Like, I don't understand this playground situation. This is what I wasn't going through. I wasn't going through this other school in this other space. What are you doing? Why are you so angry about me being from the top of the hill and you from the bottom? What are we doing here? Because I was living in utopia, like little slight racist utopia, but utopia nonetheless. All the little brown kids and all the other foreign kids play with each other, but not so much when you're over at Joseph Beeheimer's house. Like Joe Beeheimer was my neighbor downstairs. Joe Beeheimer mama and them was cool, but his brother was a whole smack racist. Like, hey, Joe was cool, but his brother was straight Ku Klux. So moving back, I felt different. Honestly, my journey is, look, when you talk about faith and belief and God and all these interactions, yo, son, I can't even front. That's why I tell people this day, I cannot be mad at the journey I've had. I can't. Because I literally went from dropping out of college to working at National Endowment for the Humanities. I was Lynn Cheney, Dick Cheney's wife's personal driver.
Wow.
Yeah. So in high school, I had a top secret clearance because I worked for the Army Research Institute in the psychology department, designing maps for the ASVAB as a high school student. So I was making money doing that in high school. I had top secret clearance when I was 17, 18, 19. Going into University of Maryland to do electrical engineering, but I would work at the Army Research Institute in summers. When I got after I dropped out because I was having some serious issues, depression, all kinds of stuff, and I got to the National Endowment for the Humanities, I was pushing mail and working for the library from time to time. The driver in the library got sick. They needed somebody who had top secret clearance to drive the chairman, who was Lynn Cheney at that time. So look at the serendipity. Look how God be making it boop, boop, boop. Right. My high school rap partner was my homie from the 5th grade. We grew up with each other. He lived on Galveston. I lived on Elmira. I hadn't seen him since he graduated high school. So we went to elementary school together. He ended up going to St. Thomas More for middle school. I went to Assumption. And then we both ended up Archbishop Carroll. We had a mutual friend named Tuji Howard Riddick, God bless the dead. And Tuji, he was Kung Fu Terrence from Galveston because he knew all the Kung Fu. I seen him do a karate move, Kung Fu Terrence or Karate Terrence or whatever. We run into each other because I'm working for the National Endowment for Humanities with the library because I'm dropping off some books at the Library of Congress. I look into a room, like literally walking down the hall. I look into this room and I'm like, Terrence? I ain't seen you since high school, bro. You went through a whole 4 smack years of college. I ain't seen you. I run into you in the library. You work at the Library of Congress. I happen to be delivering books at the library. That don't happen every day. He see me, he like, yo, man, you still rap? I wasn't rapping at the time when we was partners. I was his beatbox. He was the MC. I wasn't even rhyming. I didn't even want to rhyme. I just wanted to make music for people and write rhymes for people. I didn't think I could rhyme. I didn't think I could do none of that. He says, man, come to the cypher. I was like, yeah, I started rapping. He was like, you rapping? I'm like, yeah, I'm rapping. He was like, man, come to the cyphers. I go to Freestyle Union. Literally not even a year later, bro, I'm in New York making a record with Steve Coleman because a producer named Ezra Greer was there at one of the ciphers and was like, man, I want to take you out of New York, make a record. And I was like, nah, you well. Right. So end up doing all that stuff. My first, we go make the record. On that record is Black Thought from the Roots. Didn't even know. We met him. Met Black Thought and Amir at the same time, and because their manager Rich Nichols was talking to Steve about how to manage the Roots, And that's why the Roots end up going to London, because Steve told them, treat your band like a jazz band, have them go to another country, establish their thing. He said once they build a fan base, they'll tour forever.
And the rest is history.
Look at the Roots, right. Then we leave that recording session in New York off of Ditmas over in off of Ocean Parkway, Brooklyn. So we leave that studio, come home. They call me and say, you got a passport. Last time I had a passport, I was 5 years old.
Right.
So I go to my man who happened to be at the Cyphers. We go to the State Department, the passport office. My man who was at the Cyphers is in the window. We in line. I look up, he in the window. He like, what y'all doing here? I was like, filling out this passport jump. He said, man, step out of the line, come in for a second. Gave me the little Southside holler. Next thing you know, we had our passports in like a couple hours.
Wow.
Off the Goofy, right? First trip. Next thing you know, we on a plane. We get to Europe. I'm on a double-decker tour bus. Huh? Staying in 5-star hotels. What? Right. I mean, granted, with my homie, who's my roommate. That's who I'm with the whole tour. But we with Ravi Coltrane, John Coltrane's son, Steve Coleman, Gene Lake, Oliver Lake's son, Ralph Alessi, super trumpet player, Michael Wimberly, Dr. Mo, who's Karen Musabale, who's a well-known African percussionist who was living in Holland. Reggie Washington, incredible bass player. I don't remember if David Gilmour was on that. And Andy Milne, piano player. This is my first time out the country.
Wow. And
we with 2 other MCs from Philly. One of them was Black Thought's best friend, Sean, who went by Air Smooth. I crack a beer with Air Smooth. Smooth and Andre the Great One, which they were called Divine Beings at the time. They were the other 2 MCs in this experiment that we were on. That's my first joint. And we pull up after we get off the plane in Paris and drive to this little city outside of Paris called Samoa, France. And that's our first gig. And my whole head is blown wide open because there's mad people there. And I'm like, I get to rap on stage for all these people right now? Like right now? Bruh, that ain't never. That's awesome. Rapping at home is one thing. Rapping in another country and they don't speak your language. Like, bruh, I took French in high school so I can get around. But I'm like, oh, y'all Bama's ain't gonna understand nothing. This about to be, you got the whole goofy look like, this about to be real interesting, Mo. How they gonna understand?
Right.
And they all in. It's a whole wave.
That's dope.
So yeah, I can't be mad.
And throughout your career, you've worked with some very talented greats. You have Ambrose, and I'm gonna, pardon me if I mess up his name. Ambrose.
Hold on. Let me help you. I'm gonna stop you.
Thank you.
So you don't do it. Akin Musuri.
Yes, jazz trumpeter. Yes, thank you. Terry Lynn Corrington. Social Science. Whose Hat Is This? Gold Link. Guillermo Brown. And so many others. What advice do you have for aspiring artists wanting to collaborate with another artist without coming off as a creep or coming off too thirsty?
Right.
Ooh, that's a hard one. A subtle DM is cool, right? Not to listen to my joint, bro. Don't hit me with that, John. Just stop yourself. A subtle DM like, yo, I'm looking forward. I would like to collaborate on something. This piano player from out of Prague hit me off the low. Just was like, hey, I'm working on this thing. Would you want to be a part? I was like, oh, that's nice. Yeah, absolutely. Even hitting the website, hit the website and fill out a contact form. I had a youngin', I'm just random. I'll answer anybody's question. I don't have any problem. A youngin' hit me the other day. He hit me through Facebook. My Facebook is really like the last place you should ever try to hit me because I don't pay attention to that, John.
Right.
I'll go there every now and again, but we a little older, younger, so we don't be really, tracing the Facebook line all that well. So I was just like, yo, hit me. And I said, hit me. He hit me on Facebook. Then he hit me in a DM. And I said, use the contact form, email me in the contact form and tell me what you're trying to find out. And that was it. He just was like, yo, what did I do? I'm from Rhode Island. I don't know what to do about my music, and I'm working, and da-da-da-da. And I just gave him some advice, you know. But even collaborations, it's the same thing. Now, excuse me, if we talking about, you know, music, you know, and me and Stan have had long talks about this. If we talking about for sale,
right,
even during the COVID,
yes,
I got that fee. I'm sorry,
right.
Love you. I love you a lot. I love you a lot. The Grammy-nominated, you know, thing, and all that other little accolades and all that time.
Yep.
Come with a cost.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
4 million streams, brother, come with a cost. You dig me?
Sir.
Right.
So there's a cost. Now we could work it out. There's payment plans available. There's all sorts of ways that we can work things out and negotiate and talk about them. And it depends on who you are too. You know, there's friends and family discounts, things of that nature.
Right.
But that's the best way, is to be willing to pay. And I recently, just as a side, I asked somebody to do an illustration for me, and they were like, yo, I'm horrible at pricing. And I said, here go the price, but if this ain't your price, I'm not mad at you. Like, let me know.
Right.
He was like, what's your budget? I was like, currently, during COVID, I don't have a budget, but I have a plan.
Right.
So if this number works for you, I will make sure I get the money up and give you money. Don't start nothing till I give you money.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but that's where I'm at. Like, I keep it a buck. That's the best way I think that you could, without being a bugaboo, is just come with what you come with. Like, just be like, yo, I know that your time is valuable. You know, keep it honest, as honest as possible. I think that's the best way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the current crisis that we're in, obviously a lot of people's income has been greatly affected by what's going on. How much of the income you make through music is live performance or having to physically be present versus passive income?
75% of the money that I make is from live performance. And I'm working on getting my passive income, seeking the assistance of Substantial Art and Music, because I understand that passive income situation is a real one. And COVID has helped me to not just realize, I already realized the pre-COVID, but it's sure enough driving the point home right now, because that passive would sure be a lovely situation right now.
Sure.
I still get publishing, which, you know, every 3 months I'm seeing a nice little check. Me and Kevin Hart still, that's my man, 50 Grizzle. Kevin Hart money be coming in. Grocery time.
Right.
You know.
For those who don't know, Kokayi has music in Laugh at My Pain by Kevin Hart. So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure they give them a point of reference. But go ahead.
You know, so I still get publishing every 3 months from a number of different recordings, but mostly Kevin at this moment. But there's also the relationships that I have established through, you know, being good people and being about my word and being a professional has also benefited from stay-at-home concerts. So Kennedy Center reached out for a stay-at-home concert. Creative Mornings reached out for a stay-at-home concert. Like, it's other entities. If it, you know, it's an amalgamation of how you do business. Yeah. So, but yeah, mostly 75% of my income comes from live shows and live interactions and tours. That's normally how I pay my bills. And then, so it's like, and so that would be it would be tours with other musicians and myself. Then it would be performances with institutions and workshops and stuff with institutions. So, you know, some of the relationships that I have with institutions, I was supposed to go to Brazil early at the beginning of this year and do a bunch of workshops in like Bahia.
Right.
You know, that's still on the table. It's just, you know, pushed back on the table. You know, I had concerts that were supposed to go March, April, May. And all of those have been pushed back. It's supposed to pick up in November, but I haven't heard the word yet. Gotcha. And so currently, right now, the good unemployment, and I ain't ashamed, the good unemployment is kicking way in which I'm like, hey, go with the, you know, CARES Act or whatever Trump trying to say as he robs the country some more. Go ahead, slide me my little couple of nickels.
And that's new too, because I'm sorry, I was just going to say that's new too, because for a lot of gig workers, they were never eligible for unemployment previously. So, yeah.
Right. It's the PPP was open. CARES Act is open for you if you want to do that. Yeah, but it's also, you got to remember with the CARES Act, I'm going to keep it a solid one. Along with the CARES Act, what happened is Trump instituted privilege to knock out some of the restrictions that were on governmental contracts. Mm-hmm. So normally governmental contracts that had to have reservations for people of color, for the disabled, and for veterans, because of a presidential order, he no longer has to adhere to that. So anybody can go bid on these, and they don't have to put any money aside for any specialty groups.
Exactly.
Right.
So while the CARES Act is helping me through, it's also robbing my folks. It's also robbing, those who are disabled, and it's robbing vets, and it's robbing, small Black businesses, small minority businesses, which are, women-led, and things of those nature to benefit those other persons in the oligarchy. But we ain't gonna get on that.
Right.
I mean,
I told you, being from DC, it put you up on some politics.
Right. But, in addition to that, you've also, you were the former governor of the DC Grammy chapter. You are a faculty member of the School of Improvisational Music in New York. And most recently, you are among artists, you recently released a mixed media portrait on the experience of Black masculinity called Hubris. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Actually, I was a trustee. I just lost my trustee election. I'm not ashamed to say that. So I was trustee of the DC chapter Recording Academy and co-chair P&G, and it helped to draft a lot of great proposals and try to move music culture forward for people of color and genres that were marginalized. So that's a lot of the work that I did with the Recording Academy. School of Improvisational Music is a school started by Ralph Alessi, the homie, and from time to time I go in as faculty. I work with One Beat Collective as a mentor in that situation. I travel and work with the State Department as a music emissary that utilizes hip hop to work with conflict resolution in certain areas where there's political conflict. And so I do all of those things. That's the work side of the art side. I think that as an artist, you have. It's so funny. I heard Dr. Dre with Jimmy Iovine talking about, they had this whole thing about musicians being role models, right? And how that really isn't the role of an artist. Similar to the whole Michael Jordan comment about, Republicans buy Nikes too, or whatever they attribute to him to saying. And I always find it funny when, it's not funny, it's just people's perspective on what they feel like their responsibility is as a prominent figure or whatever, right? Let your mama be your role model. Don't make me your role model.
Right.
And I figure you know what? It's enough people out here that have youngins and young Black folks and Black fathers and, African culture, African society, the diaspora, giving them all sorts of influences, right? If I could be a voice counter to those influences, I think I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I think I'll take that responsibility. Am I a perfect human being? Nah, not at all. You know what I mean? And I ain't afraid to let a cuss word fly every now and again, and all of that. But I still feel like part of my responsibility to myself, right, is to go out here and try to be an influence for the greater good. Period. And yeah, I know some Republicans might buy my records. as with some Democrats, I hate the two-party system anyway, so I don't care what you is. You know what I mean?
That part.
Come get these bars, but I ain't gonna hold back, and I'm not gonna relinquish the ownership or the onus of responsibility just because I'm an artist, and because that goes to the you are artist, you ain't supposed to talk about nothing political. The State Department told us that. My first time out on the road with the band I was with, Opus, the band I was in, it was like, well, you ain't got to talk about all that political stuff. Y'all just artists, y'all make music, but art and art, period, is normally a commentary on society.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you already know that I'm an artist. You already know that this art is commentary. It ain't about flying by night and being happy and carefree. It's about a commentary on society. And if we as artists don't talk about society, how do we expect to have change? Like, this is the best way for me to express my like or dislike of the current political, socioeconomic, racial, cultural experience. Like, what? Yeah, sorry.
No, I was going to say, and that's actually a great segue, because your most recent project, Hubris, you actually deal with not only the political, but you talk about Black masculinity. You talk about the prison industrial complex. Can you walk us through as far as what inspired you to do this exhibit, this project?
The Hubris project started out because you hear this word, I heard that word a lot in political commentary. The hubris of man, they talk about it in business. They talk about it in politics. Oh, the sheer hubris of such and such and such. And so I just started looking at that word, and I was like, wow, that's supposed to be like shunning it's supposed to be arrogance. And it's supposed to be shunning your nose at God. And if you go back and look at the Greek fairy tale, it's about a young kid who is told what to do, with the limitations on himself. Basically, hit these wings. If you fly too close to the sun, they're gonna melt. If you fly too close to the sea, they're gonna get wet. You're gonna drown. Stay in the middle. Be mediocre is how I interpreted it. So then I started thinking about us as a people and the expectation on us, right? As a people, don't be too loud when you're out in public. Don't celebrate like you celebrate. Stop dancing in the end zone like you dance in the end zone. That's a penalty. Don't be great. Why are you talking about you can jump from the free throw line? What's wrong with you? What you mean you smart? What do you mean you open up your own bit? Like, all of these limitations that get put on us as a people that we supposed to conform, right? As a people.
Right.
As a subsection of that, as Black women and men. Women get one sort of perspective put on them as Black women. You being too fresh. They always try to over-sexualize Black women. They try to over-sexualize Black girls. They take Black men and try to put them in a dress. They want to emasculate Black men, put them in a dress. When we talk about larger societal situations, I'm not talking about social constructs. I'm talking about as far as entertainment is concerned. They either want to emasculate or demasculate or criminalize you, right? So the big Black burly superhero man that can't be arrested by one officer. It takes 50 officers to subdue the Black body because we superhuman. And if we lay on the ground with our hands out, somehow we can superhumanly jump up and kill you if you have guns on us. So I have to shoot you first. Like, it's all of these things that happen to us, to the Black body. And then in relation to the idea of being excellent, that oftentimes for Black people gets equated to whiteness. And in white structures, and that Blackness gets equated to arrogance, and our quietness gets related to anger, and our body gets related to fear. Right. So it's all these things that correlate. And so I took the idea of hubris and the fairy tale associated to reimagine what it would be like for a Black father and son who are locked up in prison, the prison industrial complex by the king, and what that story would look like. And what is Icarus as a young man saying to us as a society, and what are we as a society saying to ourselves as Black society? Because I can't be concerned about other people. What are we saying to ourselves when we ask our kids and ourselves to not be excellent and not to dream? Wow. And so that's what I went into with hubris and did that through photography, through music, and through film. In the film On Dreams, where I interviewed Black men, up to and including my brother right here, about what it was to have a dream, to express that dream to other people and be told how to dream, and the interactions between those. And then I went a little further and did a small EP called Living While Black, which was basically a portrait of, or the impetus behind it was hearing so many stories, right, of us as a people being murdered. Bruh, you don't understand the amount of, I try not to, but I could be a violent person. I ain't even gonna lie to you. Sometimes these hands want to get exercised. But there are certain times where I really wish bodily harm, and I don't want to wish it, but I really be wanting bodily harm to come to these people that kill these innocent folk. Right? Like busting somebody's house early in the morning. They ain't supposed to shoot back. They don't know you. They don't know the police coming. You ain't give them no police warning. Right. You didn't bust in. You didn't call 15 minutes early and like, hey, we're coming to your house for the police. You just kicking somebody's door. And being from where we from and being who we are, of course you have generational PTSD that's been riding with you. You don't know who coming in your house. You don't know who trying to hit you in the head. And so, yeah, of course, at 4 a.m, if you come kicking in my door and I just happen to have that thing on me, you might get bust at. You might get shot. Sorry. I don't know you the police. I don't know. You got the wrong, and then you got the wrong house, and then you kill somebody and then feel like, oh, he need to go to jail because he shot the police because you ain't identify you. You kicked in the door at 4 a.m. Who's supposed to be awake? Right. When you calling people nigga at the hotel, when you arresting people for sitting in the hotel lobby, having making a phone call to their parent, or when you want to police me while I'm in the street parking or whatever, like all that stuff, really, I swear for the Lord, I'd be wanting to put hands on people or have somebody get their hands put on them, And so as a reaction to that, I wrote Living While Black, because there's a whole lot of stuff we can't do just because we us. Right. Like I can't sit in my window and just chill without somebody coming and having something to say. I can't walk on the street by myself and not be bothering nobody, minding my entire own business. Can't do it. Ooh. Sorry to be so heavy.
No, that was...
We have these conversations daily. What was it? I feel like we were talking about it either last night or this morning. So of course we relate.
And in addition to emceeing, he's also a phenomenal producer. Living While Black, you actually, amongst other projects, you produced yourself.
Yes. Thank y'all for having me. I mean,
thank you.
You know what it is. I love y'all.
We love you too.
We love you
hold
back.
A special. What's funny is that, oh wow, I had to think back and remember how we met. That's the first thing, because I was like, did Shell know Sahai first? Like I really was going there. That's how intertwined our family.
I remember the first time. Yep.
It's so funny.
The first time I saw. Yep.
Yeah, that was crazy. I remember, meeting you at I think it was Velvet Lounge, at the event that Odyssey, Unknown, and Nico had for their project. Right. And then connecting again and meeting Sahat when we were in South by Southwest. Right. And then Shell and Sahat met at
Q&5.
Yeah, the Q&5 Mega Show.
Yep.
Later. Yeah.
And then realizing that they both had the same birthday.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's the tweak out.
Right.
Yep.
And then at the Grammy party, realizing that not only they had the same birthday, but so did Asheru's wife.
Right. Absolutely.
Yep.
And then it became the Trinity. You know what I mean?
It became the holy trinity of Capricornness.
Right.
I mean, it's 5 of y'all in my Sagittariusness, but I'm okay with that.
Right. You close enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
close
well,
enough. Right.
One of us gotta be special.
Right. No doubt. Awesome. But thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Thank you, bro.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to Artistry, where art meets industry. This podcast has been brought to you by Substantial Art and Music. For more information, please visit www.subartandmusic.com. You can also follow us on social media at subartandmusic. We'll see you soon, but talk to you sooner. Peace.